Here are 38 serial killers with the highest victim count that we bet you did not know about. Like our video and subscribe to our channel if you find our content useful. Radik Tajarov. He murdered elderly women in several Russian regions, found guilty of killing 2 elderly women in Samara, was arrested on suspicion of committing these murders. Cedric Make. Known as the Hammer Killer, he killed his victims with different instruments such as guns, rocks, a knife, and a hammer. He was sentenced to 1,340 years in prison. Mariam Silikiotis. Known as Mother Rasputin, she believed to have murdered wealthy women and children who came into her abyss. Zhang Jun. Robbed 22 stores in several Chinese provinces, killing 28 people in the process, executed in 2001. David Tabo Simlane. Sexually assaulted women he befriended in forests, stabbing or strangling them afterward, sentenced to death. Luis Gregorio Ramirez Maestre. Killed motorists in various municipalities before his 2012 capture, was sentenced to 34 years in prison. Karl Denke. Killed and cannibalized poor travelers and homeless vagrants, committed suicide by hanging himself in his holding cell before he could be tried. Ramadan Abdul Rahim Mansour. Mansour was a gang leader known as Al Turbini. He had raped and tortured homeless children, mostly boys aged 10 to 14 years old. Ali Esker Borajurdi. Known as Esker the Murderer, Borajurdi killed 33 young adults in Iraq and Iran. He was executed by hanging in 1934. Vasily Komarov. Known as the Wolf of Moscow, Komarov was a horse trader who killed 33 men. He was executed by firing squad in 1923. John Wayne Gacy. Gacy is known to have murdered a minimum of 33 teenage boys and young men, 26 of whom he buried in the crawl space of his Chicago home. Fernando Hernandez Leyva. He was accused of as many as 137 murders in 5 southern Mexican states, was convicted of 33 murders, and was sentenced to 50 years in prison. Vera Renksi. She was a Romanian serial killer who allegedly confessed to poisoning 35 individuals, including her 2 husbands, multiple lovers, and her son with arsenic. Ted Bundy. He was an American serial killer who kidnapped, raped and murdered numerous young white women and girls during the 1970s. Gennady Mikasevich. Mikasevich killed women by strangling them. He also robbed his victims of money and valuable items. He was executed by firing squad in 1987. Serhiy Tkach. A former Ukrainian police criminal investigator, Tkach suffocated girls aged between 8 and 18 and performed sexual acts on their bodies after they were dead. Moses Sithole. Known as South Africa's Ted Bundy, Sithole preyed on unemployed women, posing as a businessman and luring his victims with the prospects of a job. Tiago Henrique Gomes de Rocha. Gomes de Rocha was a Brazilian security guard. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison and attempted suicide while incarcerated. Raman Raghav. Raghav went on a violent rampage in Mumbai, India. He bludgeoned people to death inside their huts while they slept. He died of kidney failure in 1995. Ahmad Siraji. Siraji was convicted of strangling women and girls in a series of ritual slayings he believed would give him magical powers. He was executed by firing squad in 2008. Wang Chang. Wang killed 45 and raped 10 young girls from 1995 to 2003. He was executed by firing squad in 2005. Muhammad Baij. Baij raped and killed at least 44 male children and teenagers. Additionally, he killed 2 adults. On November 27, 2004, he was sentenced to be executed. Alexander Pichushkin. Known as the chessboard killer, he was convicted of murdering 49 victims and suspected of killing 60. He claimed to have murdered 62 people. Gary Ridgway. Known as the Green River Killer, he targeted sex workers from Seattle. Ridgway was suspected of killing over 90 victims but was convicted of 49. Ivan Maleshoff. Known as Bluebeard of Kharkiv, he was convicted of murdering women in Kharkiv and executed in 1935 by firing squad at the age of 40. Floresvaldo de Oliveira. Known as Cabo Bruno, he was a former police officer and vigilante who murdered criminals in the outskirts of Sao Paulo. He was murdered by unknown assailants in 2012. Anatoly Onoprienko. Known as the Beast of Ukraine, he was convicted of the murders of 9 people in 1989 and 43 people in 1995 to 1996. He died from heart failure in 2013. Andrei Chikatilo. Known as the Butcher of Rostov, Chikatilo was convicted of the murdering women and children. He was executed by gunshot in 1994. Samuel Little. He was convicted of killing 3 women, but later investigations linked 31 other murders to him. The FBI later confirmed a total of 60 murders linked to him. Yang Xinhai. Known as the Monster Killer, Yang would enter victims' homes at night and kill using axes, meat cleavers, hammers, and shovels. He was executed by gunshot in 2004. Kampata Marshan Korea. He was an Indian serial killer who used a hammer to kill over 70 men and women. He was hanged in 1979. Pedro Rodriguez Filho. He killed his father and ate a piece of his heart, officially sentenced for 71 murders but claiming to have killed over 100 drug dealers, rapists, and murderers. Daniel Camargo Barbosa. Child and woman murderer, believed to have possibly raped and killed over 150 victims, primarily targeting female children, as they were more likely to be virgins. Mikhail Popkov. Serial rapist killer nicknamed the Werewolf, who was active for 2 decades in Angarsk, Irkutsk, and Vladivostok. He was sentenced to life. Javad Iqbal. Child murderer and rapist, known as Kukri, Iqbal murdered 100 street children by strangling them and covering up his crimes by dissolving the bodies with acid. Pedro Lopez. Child murderer and rapist, known as the Monster of the Andes, Lopez targeted young girls between the ages of 8 and 12. He was released in the late 1990s. Luis Garavito. Child murderer, torture killer, and rapist known as La Bestia, he was originally sentenced to 1,853 years in prison, but this was later reduced to 22 years. If you like our content, please consider supporting our channel on Patreon with as little as $5 donation. The link is in description. Please subscribe to my channel for more exciting videos.